Bicycle improvement. Okay. Um, uh, we have a recording in progress. We welcome you all to this meeting. We are going to talk about the North Central Bicycle Improvement meeting events. I've lost my words already. We've got a small group tonight. We've got about 25 people that signed up and about 13 people that are currently on a line with us. And we will get to your questions after the presentation. So Jane and Lori, you can put your hands down. We will come back to you. You won't miss an opportunity to get a question in. It's a small enough group. We can have a good conversation tonight. So without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to our speaker tonight, Sue Ellen Atkinson, and I'm going to turn off my camera and let her take the floor.
Thanks, Kelly. Welcome, everyone. As Kelly mentioned, I'm Sue Ellen Atkinson. I'm the Principal Transportation Planner for the city's Public Works Department. And as she also mentioned, you're in the right place tonight. We're talking about the North Central bicycle improvements that are upcoming. So just an overview of the brief presentation that we have tonight. We'll do a short presentation and then have time for questions from all of you. So we'll be going over the 2020 Bicycle Master Plan, the planned projects for North Central, and then as I mentioned, we'll have time for questions. So just a brief overview of our 2020 Bike Master Plan. It was adopted just over a year ago, April 6, 2020. Which after a pandemic feels like quite a long time. It serves as the vision for expanding and improving our city's bicycle and micromobility network. So really taking what we have already on the ground and expanding that so that we have a fully connected and comfortable bike and micromobility network for all ages and abilities. So going into that plan, we had a very robust community input process. Starting in December 2018 with our community open house and pop-up at our downtown library. We also had an interactive wiki map open from late 2018 to early 2019 to share feedback in an interactive way. We had advisory groups that we relied on pretty heavily throughout the planning process. We had a citizen advisory group that was comprised of individuals from different communities and neighborhood associations throughout the city. We visited our Sustainability and Infrastructure Commission often for feedback. And then we had our technical advisory group, which was comprised of members of the city staff from various departments. We also had a citywide bike tour with a demonstration of a separated bike lane in March 2019. And then once we had our draft bike network in hand, we went out and did sort of a traveling roadshow with pop-up events at, I think, 6 different locations throughout the city. And then finally, we wrapped up with an open house for our draft plan in December 2019. So we had a lot of opportunities to engage with the community. And then at the same time, we were doing a lot of data analysis. So we did collision analysis, we did analysis of the level of traffic stress on a roadway, trying to figure out how comfortable different roadways are for biking. Bicycle network connectivity with what we had on the ground, how connected was the city via bikes, and then trip potential, where were our potential areas for increased bike ridership. So taking all of the community input, taking that data analysis, all came together into our Bike Master Plan proposed network. And this is the network that was adopted by City Council in April of last year. And that's the network that's really guiding what we're doing in the future in terms of bike projects. So all of that analysis combined into a fully connected bike network that's really focused again on comfort and on safety for all ages and abilities. The projects that are in the plan, each of these individual lines represent projects, and they were all prioritized to identify which projects most closely met the goals of the plan and which should be implemented first. That way we really had a true roadmap for how to implement the Bike Master Plan. That prioritization also helps us when we're looking to prioritize projects for funding and when we're going for grants, which projects should we be applying for grants to implement. So taking that proposed bike network, we get into the projects that we're here to talk about tonight. We have about $1 million in federal funding, community development block grant funding, block grant program funding, I'm sorry, CDBG, is provided through the Department of Housing and Urban Development, or HUD. This is money that the city receives annually. Some of the programs are used for housing projects and some are used for infrastructure projects. In the past, infrastructure budget has gone toward paving and street rehabilitation projects. And in recent years, we've pivoted to try to use those funds to implement bike and pedestrian programs in the CDBG program area. So this year, what we identified was the implementation of two of our top priority projects in the Bike Master Plan. The first is along Humboldt Street from Peninsula Avenue to 5th Avenue. That's priority project number 2 in our Bike Master Plan. You'll see that I've noted here it's Class 2 bike lanes, which are striped bike lanes. Very standard ones that I'm sure you'll recognize. In the Bike Master Plan, that portion from Peninsula to Poplar is recommended as a bike boulevard. When we were going through the pre-design effort for this project and looking at the traffic volumes and speeds in that area, we realized that a bike boulevard was not sufficient to create the safety and comfort that was necessary. So the traffic analysis in turn led to our decision to upgrade that facility from a bike boulevard to Class 2 bike lanes. So that's Class 2 bike lanes from Humboldt, on Humboldt, from Peninsula all the way down to 5th Avenue. Our second project is on Poplar Avenue at Delaware and Indian. That's priority project number 4. And that's a combination of Class 2 bike lanes and bike boulevard. And that basically spans from San Mateo Drive, where we just completed the San Mateo Drive Complete Streets project, over to the planned projects on Humboldt. So we'll see some good connectivity between a recently completed project and the Humboldt project that will be going in at the same time. So just a refresher, Class 2 bike lane is a striped bicycle lane on street. These photos are, again, from that San Mateo Drive project that was recently completed. If you haven't been out there, I really encourage you to go take a look. It includes intersection treatments and the green conflict striping that you'll see in the photo on the left that makes motorists and bicyclists and micromobility users aware that there's a potential conflict in that area and to be aware. Likewise, Bike Boulevard, these photos are from a bike boulevard that is just almost complete on 28th Avenue from Mason Lane down to El Camino Real. Bike boulevards have shared lane markings, as you'll see in the photo on the right, signage, including destination signage, and possible traffic calming measures. You can see a raised crosswalk in the photo on the left and curb extensions in the photo on the right. And really what those traffic calming measures aim to do is to reduce the speed of the vehicles on street so that it's a safer environment for bicyclists to share the roadway. So coming into implementation for these proposed projects, our projects are currently in design. We're at about 65% design, so about 2/3 of the way there, which means that we still have a good amount of the design effort still to go. So nothing has been finalized quite yet. In doing the pre-design and in doing the initial getting up to 65%, what we are realizing is that there are trade-offs that are necessary to evolve our current roadways on Humboldt, Poplar, and Delaware to complete streets that really provide an environment where all users can share the roadway. So in terms of trade-offs, what does that mean? Really what we are dealing with in San Mateo right now is a roadway network that was created for vehicles. It's been that way for a long time. And what we're trying to do is retrofit our existing roads to accommodate all users. In doing so, we have a limited amount of street width that we can work with. We can't make our streets wider easily. So what we're trying to do is utilize the street width that we have to evolve toward a future San Mateo roadway network that is comfortable and safe for all users. So those trade-offs might be to remove some on-street parking so that we have additional width for bike facilities. It might also include removing turn lanes if operational analysis indicates that we can do that. Just looking really at the width of the roadway that we have and how can we best use it to accommodate mobility and to accommodate vehicle storage. So how do we determine what of those trade-offs we're going to implement in a project? And that's where we get into the data. we do data analysis. We went out and did parking data collection for the entire project area, and that includes the side streets. And what we found is any parking that we are proposing to remove, there is capacity in the neighborhood to absorb that parking. So while we're looking at existing capacity and existing usage on the street, when we're looking at removing parking, we're seeing that we can accommodate that elsewhere in the neighborhood. It might not be in front of somebody's home, but there is parking available nearby. We're also doing traffic analysis. Like I mentioned previously, the pre-design analysis gave us information to change that proposed bike boulevard to Class 2 bike lanes to provide safety and separation for bike users. We're also looking at operations at our intersections and determining if any changes to the number of travel lanes or turning lanes can be made to make better use of that roadway. So going a little more in depth, like I was mentioning, we have an existing roadway that's meant for cars, or that was designed for cars rather. So in most places we have 2 parking lanes on either side, and we have travel lanes. We have that same width that we're working with when we're looking to implement bike projects. So taking that same width, what that might look like in implementing bike projects is removing a parking lane so that we can fit in north and south or east-west bike lanes along with the maintaining the travel lanes. So it's really sort of like a jigsaw puzzle in working with the space that we have and trying to make the most of it to accommodate as many users as we can. So again, our design is not yet finalized, but what we are seeing is that we anticipate some significant parking removal in the neighborhood in order to implement the approved bike master plan projects. What we're anticipating is that the parking on the west side of Humboldt Street for the full project length is going to be removed. So that's from Peninsula down to 5th Avenue, parking on the west side. So that's this line right here. And then as well, the south side of Poplar Avenue, we'll need to remove one side of parking in order to implement those bike lanes. There are also a few other areas here and there where parking is necessary to be removed to accommodate turning lanes and safety at the intersections. Our goal is to maintain parking wherever possible, but also to serve all users on the roadway. So in looking at these areas a little more in depth, looking at Poplar Avenue, we're looking at a total of 16 spaces that are removed on the south side and 9 spaces up on the north side. And then we have 1 additional space on Delaware. So that's a total of roughly 20 to 27. Again, our design is still in flux. So we do have a range of estimates in terms of parking removal, but in the 20 to 27 parking spaces range on Poplar. Moving over to Humboldt, we're looking at 68 spaces up in this northern section, up where we have adjacent to the high school and a multifamily complex, and then 17 spaces on the opposite side. Looking a little further down in our residential section, 46 spaces on that west side. And then, I'm sorry, my screen is being blocked. Additional parking removal on the east side. In total on Humboldt, we're looking at approximately 170 spaces, give or take. Again, we're still in design, so that number is fluid at this point. In terms of schedule, what can you expect? Right now, we're in May 2021. We're conducting community outreach. We expect to finalize the project design and advertise for bid in summer. And you'll hear from us again when the contract has been awarded for construction. We'll send a mailer out to the neighborhood along the project extents with information. Construction is expected to start in fall 2021. You'll hear from us again at that point, either us or from the contractor directly about construction start beginning and what that data is looking like. And then we have a very fast implementation looking at completion by spring 2022. And it is a quick turnaround on a project like this. And that's driven by the requirements to utilize the funding that we have available for this work. Just while we have you here, wanted to bring your attention to our new bike project webpage, cityofsanmateo.org/bike plan. We've evolved our bike master plan project page to an implementation page. So this is where you'll see all of our upcoming projects, our in-progress projects, and our completed projects. And as you can see, when projects are starting, there's going to be a link to a project webpage with additional information. The link for this project will be live shortly, so please check back. We also have an interactive proposed network map on that page that shows all of the proposed projects, and as we complete them, they'll be shown completed on that map as well. So I'd encourage you to visit that page, poke around, and take a look at what we're doing to implement the bike master plan. So with that concludes the staff presentation. I'll hand it back over to Kelly to facilitate the Q&A.
Wonderful, thank you. And I see that we might have a little bit of a technical glitch with Lori Watnuki and her hand going up and down. So I'm going to first go to some questions that came in during the registration, and we're going to ask those questions first, and then we'll open it up to live questions, and we'll ask you to put your hands up then. Right now, we've got a few questions that came in from the registration, and one of them is, this is a question. There is much rush hour traffic and pickup trucks on Humboldt. Is this really the best road for a bike lane?
That's a good question. When discussing all of the efforts that went into developing the proposed bike network, we had community input and we also had data analysis. And those two efforts combined were really how we drilled down to determine which roadways to propose projects on. So having the facility on Humboldt improved from a bike boulevard to a class 2 bike lane provides additional protection and separation for bicyclists. And so we do think that that is the right facility for that roadway.
Great, thank you. And this next question, Jane also put into the Q&A, but she asked in the registration, how does a bike lane on Humboldt coordinate with Caltrans' plan to change US Highway 101, the Peninsula Avenue interchange project?
Another good question, thank you, Jane. The class 2 bike lanes will provide opportunity for a better connection to the planned class 4 separated bike lanes on Peninsula. The Peninsula Interchange project hasn't yet been approved. It's still in design, but they have incorporated the bike master plans. Priority project number 1, actually, class 4 separated bike lanes on Peninsula into that project. So modification to the class 2 bike lanes would actually provide a really nice opportunity for future connection to that roadway.
Wonderful. And I see some questions coming in the Q&A and some hands going up. So we've got a few more questions that came in through the registration. We'll go through them quickly. The next one is, are the bike lanes permanent, or is this like the Safe Street signs with no path markers?
This is a permanent installation. We'll be doing paving to rehabilitate the street where necessary, so there's a nice smooth surface. And then we'll be striping and putting in any traffic calming measures as a part of the bike boulevard. Okay,
great. A few more questions here on the registration list. What can residents do to support implementation of this project?
You're here, which is a great start. Share the website with neighbors, let neighbors know about the project. Everyone, again, will hear from the city when the contract has been awarded, but make sure that neighbors know what's coming down the line. We're really excited to implement these projects, and I hope the neighborhood is too. So just get the word out.
Wonderful. The second to last question on the registration list, are there improvements planned for Monte Diablo? The critical connector lacks speed humps, bollards, repaving, and signage, etc.
Sure. There is in the bike master plan, there's a proposed bicycle boulevard on Monte Diablo, and that includes a lot of the elements that are listed here potentially for traffic calming measures. We're not quite at the point of planning and implementing that project yet, but it is a proposed project.
Wonderful. Last question on the registration list, and then we'll get to the hands raised, and then we'll get to the Q&A. Does the city plan better speed enforcement on Humboldt?
So enforcement is managed by our friends at San Mateo Police Department, and we can certainly share the request for additional enforcement along with them. The Class 2 bike lanes on Humboldt provide separation of vehicles and bicyclists. So we're hoping that that provides a more comfortable environment for bicyclists in the future, bicyclists and micromobility users in the future. And the city is also working on a collision data analysis effort, both Public Works and the police department working jointly. And I believe that there is a item scheduled for City Council on June 21st going into that. So anyone who's interested in the data analysis effort, I'd encourage you to chime into the council meeting on the 21st.
Wonderful. Okay, great. We're going to switch over to the hands raised. Now, Lori, I'm allowing you to talk. Go ahead and open your mic if you want to. I'm not sure if that's a technical glitch or if you intended to have your hands up. Your microphone can be open, so go ahead and open it.
Hi, can you hear me?
We can, yeah.
Oh, great. Okay, I do have a technical glitch with this lowering and raising of hands. I'm glad you recognize that. I really do support this this Class 2 bike lane here on Humboldt Street between Peninsula and Fifth Avenue. I think that's great. My question is, when do you plan to install the bike boulevard on 5th from Delaware to Amplet? Because this would be a great connection. And construction. Yeah, and construction starts on that that garage with the 700 cars. So we're really, really looking forward to some kind of bike boulevard to reduce the impact there.
Understood.
That's my question.
Okay, thank you so much for that feedback, Lori. Yeah, the proposed bike boulevard on Fifth Avenue, as mentioned, all of the projects are prioritized based on various factors and the overall goals of the bike master plan. So we, for the most part, are utilizing that prioritization to help us determine when to implement projects. However, when we have paving projects, standard pavement management projects that are going on, we do try to coordinate implementation of bike projects in with those. So while I can't speak directly to the timing on when the Fifth Avenue Bike Boulevard would go in, we do our best to do that in the prioritization order that has been established.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Lori. Ryan, we're going to open your microphone, and whenever you're ready, go ahead and unmute yourself and ask your question.
Okay. Hi there. Thank you, Sue Ellen, and thank you, Kelly. My name is Ryan. I bike on Poplar and Humboldt and Monte Diablo and Tilton and a lot of the roadways in North Central. And I also rode the 28th Bike Boulevard today, and I did feel safer than prior to the Bike Boulevard being installed. I wanted to acknowledge that. Thank you for working on the project. And I noticed that these are Class 2 bicycle lanes, and I was wondering what efforts are being taken to reduce the impact of dooring or potential for dooring on the bike lanes. So I guess I'm wondering how wide are the bike lanes in that area, because that's my main concern when riding in a Class 2 bike lane. That was one question I had. And then another question I had was whether COVID relief funds are being considered to be used to accelerate more great bike projects like this and build more bike infrastructure. Thank you.
Thank you, Rayon.
Okay, thank you. I will try to address all of this. In terms of the Class 2 bike lanes and dooring, that will likely be an issue on one side of the roadway only, because we are removing parking on the west side of Humboldt, south side of Poplar. So I certainly understand that concern. It will be reduced by the parking removal to make room for the bike lanes to be implemented. The bike lanes, I believe, are 5 feet wide, and then the parking lane is 8 feet wide. So there is some some room available in the parking lane for doors to be opened. I think that that's something that we can look at a little further in the design. And in terms of education, making sure that vehicles, drivers and bicyclists are always aware of each other. But that's a good point, and we can certainly take a look at that further in the design. In terms of the COVID relief funds, I might ask our director, Azalea Mitch, to chime in, because we do have a number of bike projects are only a small portion of what Public Works implements in the city. And so I think that she has some additional information that can help answer that question.
Sure, thank you, Sue Ellen. Hi, Ryan. The relief funding that we're getting is actually coming in 2 installments this year and the following year. It's currently being used to offset a loss of revenue and to make up for the rainy fund that we lost due to COVID. So there haven't been projects that have been identified primarily for that reason. That doesn't mean that we won't reconsider funding projects in the future, but there is a criteria, you know, in terms of what that funding can be used for. But right now, given the city's finances, it's sort of offsetting the loss of revenue.
Great questions. Thank you so much for that. Eric, I'm going to open up your microphone and, oh, that was the wrong one. Sorry, hold on a second. Where did you go, Eric? I seem to have lost you on my list. I will find you and open up there we are. Okay, go ahead. Your microphone is open.
Hello, and thank you for taking my question. And I also, fully support this project on Humboldt. I also have recently biked on the new North San Mateo Drive and appreciate it and really think that it's an improvement. I have a comment and a question. My comment is this. The most used north-south bike route and any bike route throughout North Central San Mateo is North San Mateo Drive. And the second most used one is Delaware Street, North Delaware, much more so than Humboldt. And I know that I've communicated with Sue Ellen about the fact that there's been an error in omitting the already existing Class 3 bike route throughout North Delaware Street on the 2020 Bike Master Plan. And although I appreciate the the city's effort to use data-driven approach, when we take the wrong data in, we get the wrong answers out, unfortunately. So putting in another Class 3 bike route on Claremont throughout the the North Central is actually kind of a waste of money when that already exists on Delaware. That's number one. And then just the the follow-up question to that is can some of the 2/3 or 1/3 of the sort of funds or planning that hasn't yet been done on this project be allocated to one of our most used bike routes, Delaware? Thank you.
Thanks, Eric.
In terms of the funding allocated toward the project, the design is at 65%. The projects have been identified based on the prioritized project list coming out of the Bike Master Plan. So understanding that there are other roadways that cyclists might prefer to use, there's no reason that they should feel the need to change their route if they don't desire to do that. What we're trying to do is build out a connected bike network and work off of the proposed bike network that we've put together through our community input and our data analysis. So in terms of allocating the funding for this project to another project, I think that we need to see the design for these very high priority projects through and then prioritize funding when it's next available for the next highest priority projects. Thanks for your comments.
Thank you, Eric. And we're going to move on to the Q&A questions. The first question that Jane entered, we've already answered previously. So we're going to skip ahead to the next one. Adam asks, do you anticipate this will impact Recology curbside pickups on affected streets?
I do not. I believe that there's a provision in the California Vehicle Code that allows for garbage carts to be in bike lanes on service days, but we can look into that and confirm that with Adam after the meeting.
Great. We've got two questions from Kevin, but we're going to do them one at a time. Kevin asks, why was that middle section of Humboldt not selected for parking removal?
Glad we got to that one. I actually just queued up my presentation to go back to that one. One moment. So it is slated for parking removal. What I did was just call out two representative portions of Humboldt to look at the amount of parking that was being proposed for removal in those areas. Looking at the width of Humboldt from Peninsula all the way down to Fifth Avenue, we do anticipate the need to remove parking in entirety on the west side. So this section, I just didn't do a call out for it, but it is included in the estimate for parking removal.
And Kevin also asks, Humboldt recently had numerous bulb outs installed. What will happen to those?
I'm actually going to ask Elton Yee, who's one of our associate engineers in Public Works. He's primarily driving the project design, if he might be able to step in and respond to that question.
Hi. So regarding the bulb outs on Humboldt, they'll still remain in place. The design is being constructed to have those still be incorporated, and still keeping all those safety measures. What will probably be taking place is some sort of bike conflict striping at those points where the bulb outs are, or some shared arrow pavement markings to direct the bicyclist into the shared vehicle lane roadway, and then put them back into safety once they pass those bulb out sections. So those bulb outs will still remain.
Thanks, Elton. We're going to go to Mark's question now in the Q&A. He asked, will we consider a car buyback program to reduce the competition for space?
That is a cool concept. We we haven't considered it as part of this project, but is a very interesting concept. Thank you for bringing that up.
Great idea. Adam comes back again with another question. Will there be an info sheet web page for this, as there was for the San Mateo Drive? And yes, she did mention that during the presentation. And if you want to bring that up again, Sue Ellen, we can show Adam where to find it.
Yeah.
The reason we're recording this meeting tonight is so that we can post this meeting presentation to that page.
Yep. So if you visit cityofsanmateo.org/bike plan, the North Central Bike Lane project is listed already as part of the in-progress projects. We're finalizing that webpage, and we should have that link live shortly.
We do have your emails as part of the registration for this meeting, so we can follow up with you by email afterward to let you know where the website link is. We're going on to our last question here in the Q&A. And oh, I might be wrong about that. There's more. Okay, so we're going to our third to last question. Eric, if you intended to have your hand up for another question, just blink it and I'll know it's there. Okay, there we go. So Jessica has a long comment here, and I'm going to skip ahead down to the question that she asked at the very end. And she said she might have missed it, but will there be a posting of the 65% plans on the website so that we can see the design details?
I don't believe that we had intended to post the 65% designs, but I can talk to the project team offline and determine if we can make those available, or if the final plans might be able to be posted in some form.
Great. Eric comes on the Q&A with, could you comment on where the 3rd and 4th Avenue separated bike lanes on the 2020 bicycle master plan sit on the priority list?
I was trying to do that really quickly while still on camera, and I wasn't able to do that. So Eric, I have your email address, and I can follow up with you after the meeting on that question.
Great. We have another question from Jane. She asks, does the city anticipate an increase in traffic on North Humboldt in view of the RHNA of more than 7,000 dwellings being discussed, and in view of the proposed changes to the U.S. Peninsula project being discussed?
I think right now the Rhna allocation is being discussed as part of the general plan and the housing element. And that since the general plan is still in progress, we don't know where the additional housing is going to be proposed. And also the proposed changes at 101 and Peninsula are still in progress as well. That project hasn't yet been finalized or approved. So I think that it's too early for us to determine exactly where or if there will be an increase in traffic anywhere as related to either of those projects. So this time we don't have any way of knowing what that will look like in the future.
We have somebody who wants to know, how can the bulb outs remain on the west side? They add, this is a direct conflict with the new west side bike travel lane width.
I'm going to ask Elton if he wouldn't mind stepping in again.
Yeah, no problem. So as the bicyclists approach these bulb outs, I understand that, we are pushing it to one side, essentially against the curb face. As the bicyclists approach these bulb outs, what we will be doing is essentially we will be directing them towards the center of the travel lane, thereby then going through the intersection. And once they're clear of both sides of the intersection bulb outs, we can push the bike lane back. So there will be, design is still not complete, but there will be some sort of either, again, tapering away and then pushing the bicyclist into the travel lane through some sort of conflict striping or some kind of shared arrow markings. But that is the plan, so to kind of bypass these bulb out areas.
Thanks, Elton. Ben asks, will the number of stop signs increase or stay the same?
Since we're still at 65%, we haven't finalized that. So we can come back with that response once the design is closer to being final.
Great. We have another question. They say, curious, why the west side versus the east side? Likewise, south side versus north side.
That's a great question. And during the parking data collection, we also looked at number of driveways, number of homes, number of parking spaces, and really tried to make the recommendation that would have the smallest impact in terms of residents and roadway users. And so the west side of Humboldt has fewer parking spaces and fewer homes and fewer driveways than the east side, fewer conflicts in terms of fire station, et cetera. For the south side versus the north side of Poplar, it was very much the same exercise in looking at number of parking spaces, number of driveways, conflicts, and parking supply.
All right, looks like we have our last question in the Q&A, and Lori's hand is up again. So Lori, we'll come back to you when we're finished our Q&A, our last question here. No, I spoke too soon yet again. On Indian Avenue, this is a question. On Indian Avenue, is this a class 2? If yes, are there any parking impacts?
No, Indian Avenue is proposed as a bike boulevard. So there are no parking impacts that are proposed in that area.
And Kevin wanted to add just a comment. The east side of Humboldt has the school bus stops at Cypress and Humboldt. So that also supports west side.
Great. I just wanted to chime back in. We have awesome teamwork going on in public works. So I'm able to answer Eric's question on the 3rd and 4th Avenue separated bike lanes in terms of priority. They're number 15 and number 16. So again, these projects that we're talking about tonight are number 2 and number 4.
Great. And since we're coming to the end of the meeting, Sue Ellen, do you mind recapping again just exactly when the neighborhood should expect to see any impacts?
Sure. I'm going to go ahead and bring up the schedule again. I think that'll probably be the most helpful for us. So again, yikes, sorry. Again, we're here in May 2021, talking with the community about the upcoming project. In summer is when the community can expect to hear from us again after we advertise the project out for bid. When the contract is awarded, the city will send out a mailer with information about the project. Then in fall 2021 is when we anticipate construction starting, and the community will receive another mailer or information about the when the construction will be starting. And then that construction is expected to be active through spring 2022.
Wonderful, thank you. And Lori, we're going to open your microphone again. Go ahead if you had a follow-up question. Or was it a technical glitch? I'm not sure. Lori, your microphone is open if you'd like to ask or make any comments.
It's a technical glitch.
To know.
Okay.
Thank you, Lori.
All my questions have been answered. Thank you.
Wonderful. Okay, thanks, Lori. All right. Well, that with no other questions in the queue and no other hands up except for Lori's technical glitch. I would just, if anyone else has any last questions or hands up, I think we might be concluding this meeting now. I don't see any further questions and I don't see any further hands up. So I do want to thank everybody for coming out and joining us. I know that you got to stay home and join us, but it's nice to have your thoughts and your questions. It's part of the collaboration that we do with the neighborhood. So we appreciate you. We will post this to the new web page that will be launched shortly after this, probably next week. And we thank you, everyone, for joining us tonight. So we're going to say good night. Good night, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.